Good evening, everybody. My name is David Weisberg. I'm the CEO of the Federation for Jewish Philanthropy of Upper Fairfield County. I'm delighted that everybody could join us this evening for the first in what will be a number of online community programs that we'll be doing in this new environment that we're all living in together. This one called The Taste of Torah Online. What does Judaism say about COVID-19? I'm really pleased tonight to be joined by some wonderful clergy from our community, Rabbi Elana Nemitoff-Bresler from Temple Israel in Westport, Rabbi Evan Schultz from B'nai Israel in Bridgeport, Rabbi Marcelo Kormis from Beth in Fairfield, and we hope to be joined by Rabbi Paskind from Beth in Norwalk. I know that she was leading a Shiva Minyan, I believe. As different as life goes in, it is right now, many of the rituals of life obviously continue to go on. And she had that calling this evening and is hoping to join us in progress. Before we get started, first of all, I want to apologize in advance to our panelists, our rabbis who are both my rabbis and teachers and are also my friends and colleagues. And so if I accidentally call you by your first name during this broadcast, I want to apologize. I'm going to do my best not to do that, but it's something that I'm very accustomed to doing. I also want to note to everyone who is listening, and thank you for listening, that in the past half hour, we sent you an email with some supporting materials. We'll also be trying to share them on our screen, but we realize it might be easier for you to read them if you had them printed out and in front of you. So if you haven't checked your email recently, I want to let you know that there's something waiting there for you unless you registered within the past 10 minutes. The last thing I want to let you know before we get started is when we get to the point of questions and answers, I'm going to ask those who have questions to raise their hands using the Zoom raise your hands function. And if I call on you, I am going to try to switch you from being an attendee to a panelist, which might mean if your video is on, you will all of a sudden be on video on the screen. And so if you don't want to be on video on the screen, make sure your video is off so that we don't catch you in a position that you don't want to be in.
Can they also type their questions in the chat function?
You can also type your questions in the chat function as well. And so there's one question I want to ask the three of you before we get started with your presentation. I've been so grateful and so amazed by the many ways our community has stepped forward and the many ways that the professionals in our community have stepped forward to support others, and that includes the three of you. I want to ask you a question that I'm not sure that you've gotten asked as often in the past week or two, which is, how are you doing?
I think we are all adjusting to a new normal. I think that, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I think that none of us really foresaw what was going to happen and how we were going to need to adjust to a new reality. I mean, I am 40, I'll be 44 next 2 months. And I have never experienced something like this in my life. This is a new normal that I think caught many of us off guard. And we needed to start learning from scratch. I mean, what we are doing now, broadcasting through Zoom or Facebook Live, or how to, run a minyan or a Shiva minyan through upload different text to the web so people can follow us and study with us. I think that it's a new normal. It's a lot of adjustment. And at the same time, for those of us who have, little kids, they are home, so we need to take care of our families as well. We need to take care of ourselves. And it's really a challenging time. But at the same time, and I'm going to talk about it later, but I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. And I think that people are in need of community, not a physical community, but certainly a spiritual community. And if you want a virtual community that can bring us all together through this challenge. So it's a challenging time, but I think that at the same time, there are a lot of opportunities that are open for us.
Mm-hmm. Others?
Yeah, to add on to what Rabbi Kormis said, I think, yeah, personally, each day is kind of different. Each hour feels different. At points, I sort of feel like my answer is not great. At other points, it's sort of like I'm doing okay. Yeah, similar challenges of 3 kids at home who are all in new routines. My wife Jenny works for a health organization, so they are sort of on the front lines of this, and they run health clinics around the world. So she is also, kind of fully present to her work right now. And I too have a community like all of us, a community who we are trying to readjust how we think about synagogue life. So kind of carrying all those things. I think like a lot of us, just this sense of the unknown of what the future is right now. We are seeing loss of life, and we're seeing people fall ill. And I think for all of us who are carrying people around the world, that weighs heavily on us. I've been thinking a little about being rabbi. I don't know if my colleagues feel this. I feel like I'm sort of being called to be a rabbi in a powerful new way. And, really actually I think for the first time in a while, fully present just as a rabbi, sort of is the way I think of the word. A lot of time, just kind of started this new role as senior rabbi 6 months ago. And a lot of it became sort of administrative and supervision and overseeing the building and the staff, and sort of more of a CEO type role. And, all of a sudden I feel like I'm teaching and calling and checking in on people and writing, trying to find pieces from our tradition that might offer comfort to people. So in that sense, actually, it's been really, really powerful. I mean, you don't want to have a crisis like this be the catalyst for that. But as I'm trying to sort of find out where this is taking me as a rabbi, at least in these first few days, it has been quite powerful, and just the opportunity to kind of to be there for people in that way has been really powerful.
For me, I reflect actually what Rabbi Schultz said, that when I walked into my job, I wasn't expecting it to be as administrative as it was. And I felt like I was doing a lot of logistics work and not getting to really be with people and pastor them. And now I feel that I have an opportunity to really meet our community. Having been there for 8 months, I'm getting to know people. Unfortunately, it's a horrible circumstance, but I'm getting to know people. And it's so wonderful to get to connect with people on a daily basis. And what I'll say is, last year in Southern California, we had a variety of fires come through, and our synagogue was impacted significantly by the fires. And that experience taught me a lot about how to deal with trauma and what to do with the anxiety and the trauma that occurs, and how to really emotionally care for ourselves while caring for others. And I think something that I've realized more than anything is the importance of my own self-care as I also work with others. And I think seeing that my rabbinate is, like both the other rabbis have said, has changed dramatically in the past week or two, so too has the way that I've taken care of myself, in that I've recognized how important it is that I've often been told, and we've also often been told, that we can't help others until we help ourselves. And I think that's vital. And I look forward to the opportunity to continue to connect in this way, that we get to be with other people and connect with them. And it's so powerful. So thank you, David, for giving us this opportunity and allowing us to be here tonight.
I mean, thank you. And thank you not only for being on this program, but I want to thank you for all that you're doing for the
How have you
community.
been, David?
How am I? I'm okay. It's it's surreal. I don't think that any of us could have imagined 2 months ago what the world would look like today. And like you, it's a balance of making sure that we take care of ourselves and realizing that what might have, been a minor seasonal cold for me, a year ago, feels like, it feels different. And I feel different when I go out. That you can't go out with a minor seasonal cold. You can't have a little cough in the supermarket because the world is different. And figuring out the role that we can be playing as a federation to be supportive to the community, to be supportive to our congregations, to see where the gaps are. I think part of what we look to do as a federation is to be kind of holding a basket to say, whatever anyone else isn't catching, we want to figure out to be the ones, we want to be the ones who figure out how to catch it. And so that requires a lot of coordination with everybody else and trying to find ways that we can make a difference in everybody's life. And so I hope we're doing that. I hope this program is part of it. And let's get started. I know that Rabbi Kormis, you're going to lead us off with teaching tonight.
So first of all, thank you for the invitation. As you said, I think this is really important for us to come together. And although physically we are distant from each other, I think that we are still spiritually in need, and we are spiritually in need of community and coming together. I'm going to speak for about 12 to 15 minutes, and I would like to share with you and with the attendees 2 ideas that I have been thinking about. One of them is related to a source in the Talmud, in the Babylonian Talmud, and the other one is related to a section from the Torah that we just read last week. So I would like to put things a little bit in perspective. When you think about challenging times in the history of the Jewish people, or when you think about challenging times in the life of mankind, I think that we have responded to that in many different ways. But there are 2 words that I would like to share with you tonight. The first one is creativity, and the second one is resilience. If you think about it for a moment from a Jewish perspective, when we have been confronted to challenging times, we have responded with creativity and resilience. Think about it, or think for a moment about slavery in Egypt, and the reaction was to go through the desert and to inherit the promised land. Or think for a moment about the first destruction of the temple, and then the exile to Babylon, and then the destruction of the second temple, and the loss of the land of Israel. We responded with the creation of the Talmud. We responded with creativity and resilience, saying that we want to continue with our tradition. We want to move forward, and we found creative ways how to do it. Or think about it, from a very modern perspective. After the show, after the Holocaust, we responded with the creation of the state of Israel. So I think that challenging times have brought us as a people to these 2 places of creativity on one hand, and then resilience at the same time. There's a beautiful story that Rabbi Salkin, who's serving now in Florida, wrote in one article about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. This story is in Masechet Gittin, in the tractate of Gittin in the Talmud. And it speaks at the time when the Jewish people were under a lot of pressure. Actually, the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, was about to being destroyed. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of the greatest leaders of that generation. And when he learned that the temple was about to be destroyed, he said, we have to do something. And he gathered his students and some people who would help him. And probably you all know the story that he pretended to be dead, and they took him into a coffin through the walls of Jerusalem that was under siege. So he passed the siege, and he went to talk to Vespasianus, who was the leader of the Romans back then. And they had a conversation. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai told him, you are going to become the emperor of the Roman Empire. And he said, how do you know that? And he said, well, I know that because I'm a Jew and I can tell the future. So this is a nice, it's a nice story. So he said, I just going to ask you for one thing, says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He says, please give me the city of Yavne. Please give me the city of Yavne and its sages so I can continue with Jewish tradition. And it turned out that Vespasianus became the emperor after the death of Nero. And interestingly, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, if we stay there, if we stay, you know, with the same reaction that we are having against the Romans, most likely Judaism is going to disappear. We have to take, you know, desperate measures in order to move the center from Jerusalem to Yavne and refound or restart our Jewish tradition. So you have to think about it from a historical perspective. The destruction of the temple was just a major turning point in the life of the Jewish people. Actually, you have to think that that was the place where Jewish people would connect to God. And from there, Yochanan ben Zakkai and other sages reinvented a different way how to connect to God through prayers, through the study of the Torah and the rituals that we follow up to these days. So what Rabbi Salkin said is that we are living in not similar times, but we can call what's going on today, and I found this very interesting, we can call it the E-Yavne, the E-Yavne. And I found it very interesting because that's exactly what we are experiencing today. We are seeing how us and other colleagues in our synagogues are moving from the traditional format of the four walls of the sanctuary, the four walls of the synagogue, to this digital space, this E-Yavne, if you want, that we are all trying to create. And listen, I'm so proud of synagogues. I'm so proud of my colleagues that we are trying to continue. We're trying to carry on despite the challenges that we are experiencing right now. So I don't want to compare this to the destruction of the temple, which was, you know, a major turning point in the life of Judaism. But in a certain way, you know, this is going to affect us, and this is affecting us, and probably a change is going to come from all of this. What's the change that is going to happen? None of us could really predict that. But if you ask me, I think that we're going to see more and more virtual participation of people, more virtual participation of communities and rabbis, leading services, teaching, and connecting to each other. I think that we have a great opportunity in front of us. It's true, you know, we are suffering greatly, and we see how people are dying every day around us, and it is super painful. But at the same time, I think that there are a number of opportunities that we should be taking advantage of them. We're connecting to people that we would have never been connected to them in the past, through social media, through Facebook Live, through Zoom, through prayers, through learning sessions, and through activities like this that are connecting us to them, to Jews who are, you know, distant, removed, that would have never come to a sanctuary or to be confined around four walls. And we are providing them with thriving and interesting spiritual and learning opportunities. So I think that there is a great opportunity there. And it has to do with this reaction that I feel we as Jewish people, we have had in the past when we have been challenged with difficult times. So one is being creative. And I think that many of us, we are trying to be as creative as possible. And then being resilient and knowing that this is going to pass and we have to face it the best way we can and also plan for what's going to happen next. So I think that that also has been the response of mankind. When you think about great revolutions that happened in the past, if you think about the agricultural revolution, if you think about the scientific revolution, even if you think about the French Revolution, right? Or if you think about the Industrial Revolution, or if you think about the Digital Revolution, there was a period of time for those revolutions to happen and to get to a regular person. They did not happen from one day to the next. And I think that the last revolution, the digital revolution, is still happening, but this coronavirus is prompting us and is accelerating the process, how this digital revolution is becoming a more democratic, if you want, in a sense that more people have access to the digital world. And, you know, people who a month ago or 2 months ago would say, I would never attend a meeting online. I would never watch a service live stream. I want to be there and I want to be present there. Those are the same people who are learning how to go on Facebook, the same people who are learning how to use Zoom as we are doing it today. So I think that this digital revolution is bringing us to a place where more and more people are having access to technology, and more people are being creative and resilient to the needs of our generation. So that's one idea that I have been thinking about it. And then the other one is something that I shared with my congregation this past Shabbat, based on the episode of the Golden Calf. You probably remember that when Moses left the Jewish people and he went out and he went up to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, the Jewish people started to build a golden calf. By the way, the word quarantine comes from the Italian quarenta, which is similar to Spanish, which means 40. And you know, back then it was used to keep some ships in the sea in Italy in the time of the Middle Ages. They would let people being away or stay away for 40 days to make sure that they won't spread the Black Death plague around the people. And only after 40 days, they would let them come ashore and disembark from the ship. So it's interesting that the word 40 is connected to Judaism as well, to that particular episode of the Golden Calf. You know, when the Jewish people also experienced those 40 days without Moses. So what I challenged my congregation this past Shabbat is what model of those 40 days, and that's something that I would like to share with those who are attending our conference today, what model of those 40 days are we going to take through this pandemic? Are we going to be more like the Jewish people who stayed around dancing around the golden calf and crying and descending, you know, spiritually? Or are we going to be more like Moses ascending to Mount Sinai and trying to do something that could be meaningful for us and for our lives? So I think that each time that we do something through this period, through this quarantine, and I hope it's going to be less than 40 days, I think that we should be asking ourselves, are we closer to the golden calf model, or are we closer to the Mount Sinai model? And this is an idea that my good colleague, Rabbi Guido Cohen, wrote. And I think that, you know, there are a number of ways how we could be closer to the Sinai model rather than to the golden calf model, right? So snacking, for example, or eating healthy, you know, when you are home, it's a big challenge. And I think that when we are home, we tend to snacking here, snacking there, eating this, and we don't really think about how can we have healthy habits of eating through this time, or try to stay healthy, you know, try to get out for a walk around the block, you know, trying not to interact with other people because that would be spreading the virus around. Hi, Rabbi Paskind.
Hi.
Hello. Or read a book, right? So what kind of books do we want to read through that time, through this time, or do a mitzvah, right? Which will bring us closer to the Mount Sinai model rather than to the golden calf model, or sing and listen to music, or spend quality time with your loved ones. So my invitation is to think about what model are we really following through this time when we are home. Are we following more of the model of the golden calf, or are we following more the model of Mount Sinai, trying to elevate ourselves and being more connected to our Jewish tradition and to God? So these are the two, you know, thoughts that I have been thinking about them. This idea of creativity and also resilience, And this idea of what model are we applying to this time? Are we closer to the golden calf model with the decisions that we are making every day? Or are we closer to the model of Mount Sinai, trying to be closer to our Jewish tradition and being closer to God as well?
Thank you, Rabbi Kormis. And want to welcome Rabbi Ita Paskind of Beth, Norwalk, whose presence and teaching always elevates me and brings me closer to my Jewish tradition. I'm glad that you're able to join us.
Me too. I was just delayed with a little online Shiva. Everything's new right now.
Yes, we were saying that you know, life goes on. Well, life is very different. Life goes on, and so I think we're going to look to Rabbi Nemitoff-Bresler to lead the next part of the teaching. And Rabbi, if at some point you're ready for me to share the doc. Oh, great! Thank you for making it so easy for me.
Absolutely. So everyone, on your screen, you'll see the text compilation that we've put together, and you should have also received it in an email. And we're going to go through it and talk through the different sections. So there's 3 sections: one on isolation, community responsibility, and healthy habits. And as well as there's some text at the bottom where some psalms and some concepts that we in Judaism can take in. So first, to talk about isolation, 2 things actually. The first from Exodus a few weeks ago, we learned that each person shall remain where they are. No one shall go out from their place on the 7th day, and the people ceased on the 7th day. And a friend of mine, Rabbi Sam Rottenberg, who's in Los Angeles, taught about this actually on Facebook, and taught about the fact that it seems like this text was written for us, when in fact it was written about the first Shabbat. And the first Shabbat was meant to be a time where everyone stopped. And we had never understood that until a few weeks, or like this past week, when no one was really out. And so it's a time to finally understand, what does it mean to stop on Shabbat? And isolation is not something that I want to say is something positive, but I think that taking time as rest and taking time out is something that we can gain from this, and something our text definitely teaches about, and something we can gain from. Another form of isolation, something that's not as positive, is in Numbers. We hear about the way that things can defile other things, and the idea in Numbers 5 talks about if anyone has an eruption or a discharge, whatever you want to translate that as, or if anyone is defiled by a corpse, meaning if you come in contact with a corpse and you're not supposed to, those people needed to be brought outside the camp. And the Israelites did so and put them outside the camp as God had spoken to Moses. But what is really important here, and what we really learn here, is not just about putting someone outside the camp, but what comes next. And what comes next is the importance of the priest. The priest has a responsibility for the person outside the camp to check them, to make sure that they are okay, and also to bring them back in eventually. That we, as individuals, should never be the person that's just outside the camp completely. We're always allowed back in, and we always have an interaction with the priest. We as rabbis are the modern day priests, but the beautiful thing is we can all be priests in today's day and age, and we all have an opportunity to reach out to someone and to see how they're doing, quote unquote, outside the camp, whether or not they have coronavirus or they're just socially isolating. We have an obligation as Jews to be that priest in today's day and age and reach out to people so that their isolation is not a complete isolation, that it may be a physical isolation, but not a social or an emotional one.
Yeah, I want to jump in there and say, in the teaching from Numbers, it's usually just a couple of individuals, or maybe even one individual, who's in isolation outside the camp. And here we find that every single human being in this world right now is in isolation outside of the camp. And that's something that the Torah and our tradition could never have imagined. None of us could have imagined this a week ago. So how much more do we have the responsibility to check in with the other ones who are hanging out outside the camp, so that eventually we can all make our way back in?
And go ahead, Rabbi Schultz.
Oh, I was just going to add, I'm thinking actually we had Dr. Wendy Zierler at our synagogue a few weeks ago, who's a professor at HUC. She did a teaching on on Saturday morning at Torah study, kind of on this topic. She talked about Miriam, when Miriam was sort of stricken with this scaly skin condition, and she sort of placed outside the camp. And what Dr. Zieler sort of pointed out was that they don't leave, they wait for her. Like they wait the 7 days before they continue on. Like there's such an immense sort of sense of community and sort of respect for this, this one person. Kind of to just layer onto your point that you're already making, that we really have this sort of like communal responsibility to one another and to sort of tend to the other, and just that imagery of the whole camp as they're sort of like anxious to move on and to like get to the promised land. They pause for another 7 days to wait for Miriam, because they see her so immensely important. And one of the things I've just been amazed about, kind of like to that point, is that I haven't heard anyone say sort of like my situation is tougher than the next person's situation. Like everyone is just like, this is hard. What do you need? How can I be the priest to you? How can this person be the priest to me? People are asking when they need help. Other people are offering, and that's sort of been amazing. No one has sort of said, "Oh, this is so much harder for me than anybody else." I haven't heard that once. So just the sense of community is really kind of permeated. I think just I've seen in our area here and all the different communities.
Not on the topic of community, more on lack of community, but Sara'at also fits in here for me, in that Sara'at is a disease somewhat like leprosy, but not leprosy. It's God-given and God-directed, and we don't really know how it comes. The rabbis in the Talmud try and come up with some ideas, but the idea is that God inflicts someone with this disease, and it passes from person to person to clothing, and person to places or buildings. And I think something we've learned is that places can also take on coronavirus in today's day and age, and clothing and things also can. And I think there's something telling that our text understood that there were things that, I mean, in their case, it was impurities, but there were things that can imbue something else with a sense of impurity or something that is not positive. And to speak to the community aspect, we have a communal obligation to help rid those things, those people, or those places of that virus. Rabbi Schultz?
Okay, so kind of our second set of texts is a community responsibility towards one another. And I have to give Elana, Rabbi Nemitoff-Bresler, a lot of credit here for putting these together. So I'm just kind of jumping in and helping to teach, so please everybody jump in. So a couple of texts on communal responsibility. First from Proverbs 27:19. As face answers to face in water, so does one human heart to one another. Kamayim, panayim lepanayim, kain lev ha-adam le-adam. Beautiful. I love that text. Yeah, I don't know how much I have to comment on it. Please feel free to.
This was my ordination text, actually.
So you should teach this.
So this is my favorite verse in all of Tanakh, and to me, it's talking about face answering face to water, as in God answers us in spaces where we might not expect to find God, and so to our hearts answer to each other, and our hearts can be mirrors for each other, just like the water is a mirror or reflection and refraction of ourselves. And the ability that we have to be a mirror for each other by literally looking at each other on a screen, but also by being present in the difficulties. And when someone says this is hard, we can answer them and see them and reflect for them what they need to see.
It's interesting because in the Bible, Maim, water, represents Torah, right? Represents the presence of God. And why water? Because it's playable, right? It's flexible. It can adapt. So I think that when we are confronted with challenging circumstances like this, those could be two elements that should be present there, right? So being flexible and knowing that we will have to adapt to a new normal. At the same time, finding in our Jewish tradition some guidance to this challenging time.
Beautiful. Hillel Omer al tifrosh min hatzibor. Hillel said, do not separate yourself from the community. seen this one sort of hopping around a lot right now, and how we sort of negotiate this text as we're all physically separating from one another. But of course, you could sort of read it, not so literally, and sort of expand the definition of this. And as we're seeing, I think a lot of people are even in some ways feeling more connected to the community. I can speak for all of us, the number of people in our communities who have stepped up or said, hey, I'd love to volunteer. I'd love to call somebody. If someone needs me to pick up groceries, if someone needs me to pick up a prescription, like, please put my name down. I would love to do it. I think it's amazing how many people have sort of stepped up, even without being prompt, just, emailing me, emailing Rabbi Marian, to want to, stay connected to the community in some way, even though we can't sort of physically, be present to one another. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to, yes, pass to Rabbi Paskind.
Catch. This text speaks really powerfully to me now also, because, we've always thought about community being those physical spaces where we gather, right? So for my congregation, daily minyan, morning services at 8 a.m., Monday through Friday, has been a really core part of what our community is all about. And last Friday was the last time we did that. And I really thought that the closing of our physical synagogue would mean that we weren't going to do morning minyan. But 2 mornings ago, we started doing it on Zoom. And to have at least 10 Jewish adults whose faces are right there on your screen, even if they're all muted, so they can sing to their heart's content and not be off tempo with everybody. That feels really communal and really powerful in a new and different way. And so I think that this situation, while none of us chose it or would choose it, it's teaching us something about how to build community. And I think that once our lives are going to return to a sort of new normal, our Jewish lives, and for rabbis and cantors and other clergy of other faiths, our faith leadership is going to look really different. I think we're going to end up incorporating a lot more technology than we may have before, because we're learning about its power to strengthen community right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the same time, I've been struggling with that a little, because I'm like, I just saw one article that's like, don't make it too good, like all this technology, don't make it so good that becomes our primary mode.
A discussion that I think many of us have had with our colleagues, right? So how much of the Yavne we want to include in the Jewish experience today, because, but I think that that's my feeling. It may change, but I think that it will be very hard to replace the personal connection that you have physically with others when you are in the same building. It's like if you're a soccer fan, and I am one, it's like, watching a game from on the TV and watching the game in the field itself. It's so different. I mean, you could do that, but when you are there, you feel different. You feel that connection in a different way. So I think that as long as we can provide what our congregants and what people need now, we are doing a sacred mitzvah, a sacred thing for them. And I think we shouldn't be afraid that this is going to really replace the physical connection that we have in the building.
We got a comment. Michelle Fenwick, we need to see and feel our community.
Amen.
Amen.
Which, unless someone wants to speak on Shavuot 39b, Brachot 5b is actually about that.
Please.
So Brachot 5b is the best text on mental health I've ever read. So basically, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Hanina, there's a bunch of rabbis doing different things. It's the same story a few times, but this is the last one. So Rabbi Yochanan falls ill. Rabbi Hanina goes to visit him and says, is your suffering dear to you? Rabbi Yochanan says, no, neither my suffering nor the reward of it, which we don't have to get into. Neither of them are good to me. I don't like it at all. And Rabbi Hanina says, give me your hand. Rabbi Yochanan gives Rabbi Hanina his hand, and Rabbi Hanina stands up and restores Rabbi Yochanan to health. And the Gemara asks, why did Rabbi Yochanan wait for Rabbi Hanina to restore him to health? And so prior to this, Rabbi Yochanan was able to heal himself. And the Gemara says, no, a prisoner cannot free oneself from prison, but depends on others to release them from their shackles. Meaning that we have an opportunity and a responsibility to be there for someone else, that our job is to reach out our hand and to be a hand for someone else to help them out of their pain. And it goes to all of these texts about communal and social responsibility, that we can help someone else out of their pain, and that we can't always see when we're struggling, but we can see other people's struggles. And our job is to be able to see them and help them see their pain when they may not be able to see it. Anyone want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in there. I love this text too, and I think it's really telling. When you pointed this out before, Rabbi Nemitoff-Bresler, that Rabbi Yochanan, who's now the patient, was before the person who went to visit someone else. I was just having this conversation with my synagogue president today about how we can enable our board of directors, our board of trustees, to divide up the congregation and call everybody to see how everyone's doing. And he made the point, really appropriately, that we want to make sure that the board members also receive calls from somebody else, that we can't always be the person who's giving out our hand, picking someone else up, that every single human being, no matter their leadership role, also has feelings, also has experiences, and needs to be supported. So I will say, as a rabbi, I've seen a lot of conversation this week among clergy people of all faiths. There's an amazing new Facebook group where people are sharing ideas, and people are really reaching out to each other. And I would assume that in whatever your professional world is, that's happening also. I hope that it is. For however much we have lamented the isolationism of, living with cell phones and living with other screens in front of us, we're really feeling a lot of connection right now, and that's a really good thing.
I'll say I just like something I've noticed. Everyone kind of has a hand to give right now. Like people, I'm just amazed, like the talents I'm finding of people sharing on Facebook, like music and poetry and writing and art. And even people they'll post like a video of a stream, out for a walk. I think Rabbi Kormis, you did that. You just posted a picture of your favorite spot, I think at Lake Mohegan.
Oh yeah, I love it. I recommend
everyone.
It's closed now, but
I know.
Don't go there.
I have a friend. He lives up in Vermont. He just shared a video of him feeding his chickens every morning. He's like, the past couple mornings, he just takes us into his chicken coop where he has like 50 chickens and showing us how he feeds his chicken. And I was like, I had no idea he had a chicken coop. And wow, it just took my mind off things for a few minutes to see him out with his chickens. So we each have that hand. Everyone has that hand to offer. Whether you have like, specific musical abilities, or, you just post a picture of something going on in your life, or just share something. And that's just been really unbelievable to see that everyone has something to offer right now to somebody else.
Absolutely. So I want to move us along. The next, the next to last section is healthy habits. And what I'll say is the next 3 texts are all about washing your hands. Our texts love washing hands. It's a purity thing. It's a ritual thing. It's a bunch of things. But basically, in last week's Torah portion, we're told, wash your hands before you go enter the altar, lest you die, because you don't want that to happen. We're told, who can go up to God's mountain? Oh, right, you have to be clean with your hands, have to be clean. And then the Schultz tells us, here are the things you have to wash your hands in water, by the way, not just with Purell, but actually in water. Here's when you have to wash your hands. And notice the number of times you wash your hands during the day. If we followed all this, our hands would be so dry, which many of our hands are right now. So do we want to expand upon the hand washing? Okay.
Wash your hands, everybody.
The
Amen.
Ra'an is a fascinating piece of Gemara, of Talmud, and essentially there's, I don't know the full context, but what I know is that there's someone who's, someone is sick, or something's going on in the community, and the different rabbis are figuring out how comfortable they are going to this community and helping. And one rabbi says, well, I won't go past the edge of the town where this person is. And another rabbi says, well, I won't go past the street where this person is. And another person says, I won't go past the door where this person is. And at the end, one of the rabbis says, hold on. It doesn't matter. We have a responsibility to show up for these other people. And we need to say, even when they're sick, there are things we can do for people, and we have a responsibility to be there as rabbis and as humans. And I think that text for me is probably the most powerful, because it reminds us that, yes, we're socially isolating, and yes, we're distancing ourselves, but we have a moral, ethical, whatever you want to call it, obligation to be there for others and to show up and to help in whatever way we are able at this time.
I can very quickly share these. Any good rabbi knows when to quote another rabbi. So I cannot take credit for this. It comes from Rabbi Joe Black, who is a rabbi in Denver at Temple Emmanuel there. And this is actually something he sent out to his community and was sharing amongst some of the rabbis in some of these Facebook groups that have emerged. So they actually, they went about and sort of in their decision making for their community, and this may help you too, kind of if you were thinking, should I do this, should I do that? They came up with 5 sort of Jewish values, and it's centered around, coronavirus, COVID-19. So I don't have to read the whole thing for you, but I thought it was kind of helpful just to have, if you're still making decisions, should I go do this? Should I go and do this? And these have sort of been helpful to me. I've sort of been referring to these, as our community has been making decisions, should we go in? Should we sort of open up this space or not? So I thought these values were very healthy, helpful. So the first is the value of pikuach nefesh, which is the value of saving a life. So anything that we do right now, and I think about, I always sort of fulfilling this value of pikuach nefesh. Right? If I go out, if I sort of do X, Y, or Z, is that going to help to save a life, or in some way push against this value? The second one, you're already experts on the second one. Al tifrosh min hatzibur, do not separate from the community. The third one, lo ta'ashok shachir, treat workers fairly. This is something our community has been struggling with a lot. Probably all of our synagogue communities. We have a lot of staff that we pay. We have teachers. Some of us have preschool teachers. We have maintenance people. We have a security guard. We have organists. So we've been thinking a lot. What are our values here? We want to make sure that we continue to treat our workers fairly the best we can. Everyone is we're quite concerned about finances and money, as they should be. But how do we sort of stand by these values? And the other thing I say, this is more personal. But at home, we've sort of been saying, okay, we want to do takeout, a couple times a week. Right? We want to still support our businesses in town. I have some friends who are doctors. They say doing takeout is okay, so I trust them. So there's a lot of restaurants that are, really nervous about shutting their doors. So, if you can kind of take that value and say, okay, I'm going to order from my favorite local restaurant, once a week, just to help them out. If that's something in your capacity to do, I know not everyone has that capacity. That's something we can try to do, help our local businesses in any way. Simcha, rejoicing. We certainly have modified a lot of our ceremonies right now. Some of us have had to reschedule B'nai Mitzvah and things like that, but trying to hold on even a little bit to a little light, and that'll come to the Psalm in a second. And Nechama, I think you already, we talked about this, but really being ones who comfort the afflicted at this time. So I thought these were helpful in 5 values. And I had a couple Psalms, but David, if you want to get to questions, that's totally okay as well.
Why don't we do some questions and then we'll finish with a psalm at the end.
No problem.
So let's try to do some questions. And what I'm going to ask is if you have a question and you can do the raise hands function. I'm going to try to first choose someone who has their hand raised and add you into the conversation if I see someone with hands raised. And if not, if you type it into the chat function, we'll take it there as well.
Oh, hello, Kitty.
Looking for questions.
This is Shlomo. He wanted to join the conversation.
Oh, very good.
That's Romo. He wanted to join the question. So if nobody asks a question right away, I'll ask a question, and then we can wait to see if one comes up on the chat. And the question I want to ask is with so much sadness going on all around us, what role does joy and humor play, and can it play? And is it appropriate to play in all of this?
I think it's a necessity, actually. I think that if we can't find joy and humor, then we run the risk of becoming angry and sad and miserable. And I think that my husband Noah and I make a point to take a walk together every day, and that brings me immense joy. And as much as it's hard being home all the time, we get to have dinner together every night, and we get to go for a walk together, and that's something we don't get to do on a regular basis. And I think finding the small moments of joy are the things that help us get through the day and recognize that we are helping, and that's a greater joy.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in there too. I think that humor is also hugely important. We may be feeling some really serious and heavy emotions right now. Some of us may be dealing with financial issues that are coming up, and medical issues that make us really careful to stay home. It's daunting. But if we can add some humor into our lives, it's really helpful for our mental health. And every day, every hour, it's looking like we're in this for the long haul, a longer haul and a longer haul. Who knows how long we're going to be in this situation? Hopefully really not for all that long. But we have to learn how to cope with it and not let ourselves get driven crazy, because that's not good for us either.
Great. So I think I'm going to try to add somebody now to ask a question, and let's see if this works.
Oh.
It does. And this is Tegan, are you with us?
Yes.
We would love to hear your question.
Okay, I'm a mitzvah class teacher at CHJ, Congregation of Humanist Jews, and I've been teaching for 4 years, and we're gonna do a Zoom class this Sunday. So I was wondering if I can, what's your advice on teaching 12-year-olds? And the second is that I know a lot of moms. I was a stay-at-home dad for a long time, and I'm wondering what you would advise moms to teach their children, or what to do with, like, this is a good opportunity to, make Shabbat special, and, how do you keep them off the cell phones? How do you keep them, like in real life, And also,
Thank you. We're going to let them answer your question.
Okay.
Great.
It's a great question. I think that the generation that you are talking about, the 12 years old, the 15, the 17 years old, are used to some technology and some tools that we are not. This is all, or for some of us, this is all new. This is new technology that we are learning because we were not born in a time when this technology was even invented. And I think that the kids and the students, they have, they were born with this. So I think that we should take advantage of it. And if you can interact with them in a way that You will even have them using more technology. I was teaching the other day my 7th graders, and I gave them, some concepts to find online. And I told them, we're going to reconvene in 5 minutes. I want you to open your computer, to open your smartphone, find these terms, and then tell us what they are about. So I think that technology should be a great tool for us to use and to encourage kids to continue learning.
Great. I'm going to bring in Louise. Louise is joining us momentarily.
Louise?
Louise, are you with us? Let me try that one more time.
While
No.
you're waiting for that, can I answer the question about Passover that Jackie and Michelle wrote?
Right. Okay. Well, and Louise is with us actually.
Oh, okay. Then I'll do it.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Louise. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hi, Rabbi Schultz. It's Louise and Joe.
Hi, Louise.
So I really have a dilemma, I guess. It's bothering me. I'm a registered nurse. I have a license, but I'm also 72 years old. And, part of me feels the dilemma of wanting to be there and help people, but because of my age, so I don't know if you can give me any advice. It's a dilemma, a personal dilemma, as well as my son. My son wants to volunteer. He has an EMT thing, but he's a young guy and he's got a family. I mean, what does Judaism say about your responsibility to your, family, and whether? And I don't have any answers. I just feel
I have
somewhat.
an answer for you, if I may, with the
Yes,
permission.
please.
There's a very famous story in the Talmud about 2 people who were in the middle of the desert, and they have water for only one of them. So the question is, would you give the water to the other person, or would you keep the water for yourself? There's a big discussion between the rabbis what they should be doing. Should they be saving their lives or the life of the other person? And you know what the answer is? The answer is chayecha v'chayei chaverecha chayecha kodmim, meaning your life takes precedence over the life of others. And that's very painful because we want to be there for others. We want to help them. We want to, try to make everyone feel welcome, and we try to fulfill, our calling. But your life takes precedence, and you should be taking good care of yourself first.
Right, so I want to ask Jackie's question that she had written in the chat, which is, we had planned to host Passover before COVID-19. Any thoughts on how to handle it now? For example, a virtual Seder drop off food kits, etc.
So one thing I'm working on right now, actually, so we got about 10 emails about Passover in the last 2 days from various age cohorts. And so what I'm in the process of doing is actually organizing a bunch of online Haggadot, because many people don't have them at home, and figuring out ways to bring in how we're feeling today and what does it mean to be isolated, and the opposite of going like from slavery to freedom, but going from freedom to isolation. And also we're looking at the idea of doing a Zoom Seder, that if many of us are stuck in our houses, how can we all be together? And one way is honestly through Zoom, that we have an opportunity to share in that way. And I think that we're gonna have to get creative this year. God willing, we don't, but there's a possibility that we'll have to get creative. And I think a lot of virtual community will be created. And I think the opportunity to help your family learn now how to use Zoom is very beneficial. That's at least where we are.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this too. I haven't gotten that question directly from any congregant yet, but that's been my largest stressor for the last couple of days. Usually I send out a Passover guide to my congregation that says, this is how you clean, this is how you kosher, these are the foods that you can eat, these are the, all of the normal things. And none of it feels as important as, well, what do you do if you can't be with the people you're normally going to be with? So I've been watching online rabbi conversations about this too, and I saw 2 awesome ones today, which I'm really thinking a lot about. One is a suggestion that me, the rabbi, would make a series of YouTube videos and send them around to a community, one for each of the major parts of the Seder, and especially for people who have never led a Seder before, but who are doing it on their own. they can pull up a video and do that part of the Seder with their rabbi. Another one to sort of share the wealth throughout a community is to ask a few families in a given community who do know how to lead a Seder to record themselves modeling different parts of a Seder and to share those around, so that that's a community building experience too, that if the Cohens are doing their Seder at home, they're watching the Steins do yachatz, breaking the middle matzah, that they're sort of doing that part with that other family. So, you know, Jackie, you're the one who asked the question, I think. I don't know if you are not going to get to do Seder with your family or with friends that you normally do it with, but if you use technology, you may be able to be together virtually. You know, it's going to happen a lot.
I'm going to welcome Shelley Krieger as a panelist. Hi, Shelley. I'm going to unmute Shelley now.
Now I'm going to end my day with you. So my question is a follow-up to Jackie's, because clearly Pesach is going to be very different this year. Although we're trying something Friday night in our family that's scattered across the East Coast, as my daughter is calling it. She invited me to a shaboom, a Shabbat Zoom experience on Friday night. So in prepping for Pesach, and clearly it's nice to have a little extra time to be doing some Passover cleaning, it occurred to me that I have not, nor will I perhaps be able to, do the kind of Passover shopping I normally do. One, there's no kosher market that or a butcher. The one or two times I've been out, the kosher cases are completely empty and void of meat or chicken. What are our obligations in terms of kashrut during times when kosher food may not be available to everyone?
That's a good question. Rabbi Schultz, go ahead. Then,
yes, I defer to my sort of colleagues here more on the kasher question, but I will say there are some wonderful online sort of kosher butchers. One called like Grow and Behold and things like that. So if there are opportunities to support some of these more kind of smaller kosher businesses that are still trying to send out kosher meat, I have no idea if they are and what their status is, but there might be some opportunities to look.
My last indications from following Grow and Behold on Facebook is that they're very, very busy working to get product out.
So, and you know, Shelley, that not all the products, there are some products that can be consumed if they are purchased before Pesach without the Pesach Hechsher. So things are going to be different for sure. And I think that the food is going to be different, and what we will be preparing will be different. And maybe you want to turn to those kind of products that do not require an Hechsher before Passover, if they are bought before the holiday. But I went to ShopRite today, and there was matzah, and there were, some Passover aisles. So if you may want to go there and get some.
I'll also suggest something that may be extremely unpopular with you, Shelley, and with anyone else who's listening. You could go vegetarian.
Yep.
I know plenty of people who have a dairy Seder or who have fish as their main course, which you can get at any local place if you're okay eating that without a hechsher. And that's going to be more available than kosher meat where we live right now.
I'm going to bring in Linda for one last question. Hopefully Linda will come up as a panelist momentarily. Let's see. Maybe I'm not going to bring up Linda as one last panelist. Well, I think
there you go.
There she is.
Good.
There is Linda.
David,
Linda, you're on.
Hi, actually, I'm here with my husband, Mark. And I wanted to start by saying thank you so much for doing this. This has been terrific. And it sparked a question now beyond Pesach.
Many hospitals and the Red Cross are asking people to donate blood. And we have both given many times in the past, so we understand the need for it. But you also just said the first concern should be taking care of ourselves. So going to a Red Cross donor center, may we be maybe unintentionally infecting ourselves if one of the workers there is a carrier? I'm not sure.
Medically speaking, I don't think any of us are doctors. But what I do know is what we said, that you have a responsibility. Your health is very important, that you have to protect yourself first. And also, if you feel comfortable, you can go and donate blood. I think that we have an obligation to help in our community, as we taught about for the whole time. And I think it's what you feel comfortable with. If you feel comfortable, I would say do it. There is a possibility you might infect yourself. And if you are at risk or in a high risk population, I would recommend maybe not. But it's what you feel comfortable with. And if you do, then I would go.
Great, thank you. So I want to thank all of our questioners. I want to thank all of these wonderful rabbis who've taken time out of their schedule to provide us with their wisdom tonight. Rabbi Elana Nemitoff-Bresler, Rabbi Evan Schultz, Rabbi Marcelo Kormis, Rabbi Ida Paskind. Thank you not only for giving to our community tonight, but for all that you give the community in so many ways. And it's also just good to see you in conversation and supporting each other and as friends. And I think it strengthens what we are as a community. So thank you for giving in that way as well. Thank you to the inventor of Zoom meetings, who has enabled so much that I saw someone today saying that the inventor of Zoom should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And there certainly ought to be some honor for what has been, I think a lot of us tend to spend a lot of time criticizing or bemoaning technology until those times that we really need it. And I'm grateful that technology has enabled us to come together as a community. Tonight, I want to remind those that are listening that there's other opportunities coming up to join together, both at your own congregations. Everyone is doing things over technology, and I want to encourage you to look at what your own congregation is doing. And cross community, this Saturday night on that subject of finding opportunities for joy and humor at 8:30, we're having our Upper Fairfield County post-Havdalah social distance song circle, in which many of our musical clergy are performing, including Rabbi Evan Schultz. I look forward to hearing what fish songs he has in store for us that night. And then on Monday evening at 7:30, one of the things that happens through situations like this is we meet people in the community that we may not have otherwise gotten to meet. On Tuesday, I got the opportunity to meet a member of our Upper Fairfield Jewish community, Dr. Harvey Risch, who is an epidemiologist and professor of public policy at Yale. And we're going to have a session with him on insights from an expert, where he's going to talk about this situation from his significantly greater experience and understanding than so many of us have. And so I want to encourage you to join us and spread the word about these programs. And thank you all. I wish everyone good health and comfort and community and a good night.
And thank you, David.
Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it together.
Evan, let's finish with one of those Psalms.
Oh, I'll share my screen again.
Sure. So I've been turning to the Psalm. I actually did a Psalms class for my community this week, so some of you have already seen this. I think I'll go to Psalm 13, because that one has really been sitting with me. Really, it might not be one that you're familiar with, but one that might provide a little comfort and guidance at this time. So this is a psalm written by an individual. I'll just read it and kind of share, how it's sort of sitting with me right now. And please comment any sort of reactions from as you see it. Psalm 13, for the leader, a psalm of David. How long, O Lord, will you ignore me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I have cares on my mind, grief in my heart all day? It sort of felt particularly relevant right now. How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Look at me, answer me, O Lord, my God. Restore the luster to my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say I have overcome him, my foes exult when I totter. But I trust in your faithfulness, my heart will exult in your deliverance. I will sing to the Lord, for God has been good to me. A couple of things that I sort of take from this, and any of my colleagues, please feel free to jump in, or anyone in the chat room. One, sort of the repetition of the how long. I think for a lot of us, there are these questions right now. This is only day 4, really, for a lot of us, and we read sort of the news. This could go on for weeks, months. We don't know how long. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, and the psalmist sort of repeats this question in different ways. What I like about it too, it's not, some of the other songs are very sort of accusatory towards God. Why have you done this to me? Why is this happening to me? Whereas the writer of Psalm 13 is sort of asking these broader questions. Even how is less accusatory. It's more like a real deep sense of questioning and trying to understand the situation. So I sort of felt in many ways this might resonate with a lot of people who are saying, how long is this going to go on? How long are my kids going to be home? How am I going to be working from home? How long is this going to go on? These sort of open-ended questions that we're carrying. But the thing I also love about this is that verses 1 through 5 are, there's a lot of pain in them, and there's a lot of challenge in those verses. The last verse, verse 6, holds on to the sense of hope and possibility. And if you look at your day or how you're feeling right now, even if 5, 6 of you are feeling down and feeling a sense of anxiety and feeling a sense of pain, hold on to verse 6, that there's a sense of possibility. There's a sense of hope right now. As David was talking about, hold on to the joy, hold on to the laughter, even if it's just a little 1/6 of your day or your existence or your psyche right now. So to me, it's sort of positive, or just a little something to hold on to. There's that last verse that sort of says there's hope in this. So please, that's my kind of final message to everybody.
And with that, let us say good night. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Lila Tov.
Bye.
Good night.